Srinita. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya Jaya Nityānanda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya Jaya Nityānanda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya Jaya Nityānanda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, so we're reading from the Caitanya Charitamrita Adi Līlā, chapter 11 on the expansions of Lord Nityānanda, verses text 20 and 21. So on the board is text 20. So I'll start and then if you can repeat. Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā. vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā. Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā. vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā. Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā. vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā. Please chant.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā.
vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā.
vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā.
vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā.
vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā.
Ladies.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā.
vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā.
vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā.
vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā.
vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā.
Murāri-caitanya-dāsera alaukika līlā. vyāghra-gāle caḍa māre sarpa-sane khelā.
Thank you. Word for word. Murāri. Murāri. Caitanya-dāsera. Of the servant of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Alaukika. Uncommon. Līlā. Pastimes. vyāghra-gāle. On the cheek. Caḍa. Māre. Slaps. Sarpa. A snake. Sane. With. Khelā. Laying. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada. There were, sorry, I have to make sure I go into the microphone. There were many extraordinary activities performed by Murāri, a great devotee of Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Sometimes in his ecstasy, he would slap the cheek of a tiger, and sometimes he would play with the venomous snake. Repeat after me. There are many extraordinary activities performed by Murāri, a great devotee of Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu.
a great devotee of Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu.
Sometimes in his ecstasy,
Sometimes in his ecstasy,
he would slap the cheek of a tiger,
he would slap the cheek of a tiger,
and sometimes he would play with a venomous snake.
and sometimes he would play with a venomous snake.
Purport. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura writes in his Anubhāṣya, Murāri Caitanya-dāsa was born in the village of Sar-vṛndāvana-pura, which is situated about 2 miles from the Galaśī station on the Burdwan line. When Murāri Caitanya-dāsa came to Navadvip, he settled in the village of Modadruma, or Māmagāchi-grāma. At the time he became known as Sāraṅga, or Sāraṅga Murāri Caitanya-dāsa. The descendants of his family still reside in Sarer Pāṭa. In the Caitanya-bhāgavata, Antya-khaṇḍa, chapter 5, there is the following statement. Murāri Caitanya-dāsa had no material body features, for he was completely spiritual. Thus he would sometimes chase after tigers in the jungle and treat them just like cats and dogs. He would slap the cheek of a tiger and take a venomous snake on his lap. He had no fear for his external body, of which he was completely forgetful. He would spend all 24 hours of the day chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa mahā-mantra, or speaking about Lord Caitanya and Nityānanda. Sometimes he would remain submerged in water for 2 or 3 days, but he would feel no bodily inconvenience. Thus he behaved almost like a stone or wood. But he always used his energy in chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa mahā-mantra. No one can describe his specific characteristics, but it's understood that wherever Murāri Caitanya-dāsa passed, whoever was present would be enlightened in Krishna consciousness simply by the atmosphere he created. Om Gyantamanandasya Ginanjala Shalakaya Chakshu Amritam Jena Tasmai Śrī Gurave Namaha Śrī Caitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yana Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapatandikam Vandeham Śrī Guru Śrī Yuta Padakamalam Śrī Guru Vaishnavamscha Śrī Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganat Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Sarvadutam Parijana Sitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Vada Krishna Padan Sahaganalita Shri Vishakam Hidamshta Hey Krishna Kurna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jigapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Vyāghra-gāle Vishabhanu Sate Devi Punanami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Charubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Be'evicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Śrī Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Śrī Advaita Gadadhara Śrī Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the translation again, there were many extraordinary activities performed by Murāri, a great devotee of Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Sometimes in his ecstasy he would slap the cheek of a tiger, and sometimes he would play with a venomous snake. Very nice verse. Something that I was thinking that I could not imitate. If I go to the zoo or something, or these Bengali tigers are very big, if you want to go and slap the tiger, it'd probably bite your hand off or something like that. So I was thinking, my first thoughts when I was thinking of this verse was like, wow, who is this person? It's an amazing person. Where, he's performed so much wonderful service to the Lord, humble service. And so as I was researching, going into more and more, it was more and more exciting to read about these personalities, because when we read about personalities of the Lord that have actually been touched by Lord Caitanya, Lord Nityānanda, they're pure. And as it says there, it says, it says at the end, it says, wherever he is presented, he's enlightened Krishna consciousness simply by the atmosphere he's creating. So he's creating this wonderful atmosphere of service. So I have a few words to say about him, and then we go on to the next verse. Okay, so what I found from him, because I was thinking, I have to be honest, I never really know about these personalities, and when we actually give a class, we really get to know something of these persons. So it was very nice to be given this class. So in the previous chapter, Adi-līlā, where he was talking about the branches of Lord Caitanya. So you have the branches. There was a beautiful picture I saw of the trunk where you've got Lord Caitanya, and the branches that go off the trunk are the Panchatattva, Advaitacharya, Lord Nityānanda, Gadadhara, and so Srivas. And from there you have the sub-branches. And Thakur Sangha Das is the 77th of the original tree of Lord Caitanya. So these are for the sub-branches. And another name of Thakur Sāraṅga Das was Sāraṅga Thakur. Sometimes he was called Sangapani or Sangadhara. He was a resident of Navadvip. Navadvip is where the area where also Mayapur ISKCON temple is, in that area. So it's in West Bengal on the Ganges, in the neighborhood known as Madhurāṅ-dvipa. And I was listening to a nice class by a senior devotee, and this Madhurāṅ-dvipa is one of the 9 islands, and it's the Padasevanam, as we have all the different islands with their Shravanam, Kirtan, Vishnu, and they all have different names. I'm sorry, I don't know all of them, but I sort of heard about this one. And Padam says, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, meaning that he is the servant of the servant. So he does all the services that comes to him. Spontaneously he does all the services, cooking for the deities, serving the devotees, anything he was doing, all these things. And it was to the Lord and his devotees. He used to worship the Supreme Lord in a secluded place in the bank of the Ganges, meditating and chanting the holy names. Through these practices, he obtained many miraculous powers. At first, Sāraṅga Thakur did not want to accept disciples, as it's explained in the verse.
Didn't want to accept his what?
He didn't want to accept disciples. He did not want to accept disciples. Can you hear that? Okay, good. And because he fear of the disturbance to his bhajan, to his service to the Lord, he felt that it would have been an inconvenience. But Mahaprabhu repeatedly encouraged him to do so. He was not to accept disciples, but he was repeatedly being inspired from within by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to do so. Thus one morning he decided, and I remember Nityānanda Prabhu was saying about the dead body, and this was the person we were talking about, Sāraṅga Thakur, in one of your classes just recently. And at first Sāraṅga did not want to accept disciples, And thus one morning he decided, whom I see, that morning I wake up and do my bathing, and after I bathe in the Ganges, whoever I see, I will make my disciple. When he went to the bank of the Ganges to take his bath, by chance, something touched him. And it was a dead body floating in the water, and it touched his feet. And it's explained that when he touched the body of this person, the body came to life. It explained that usually bodies are cremated, but those of children are not cremated, as I've heard. And so Thakur Sāraṅga Das accepted him as his disciple. Now this disciple of Murāri Chandra Das became a famous Thakur Murāri, and his name is always associated with that of the Lord Sāraṅga. His succession still inhabits the village of Sar. There is a temple in the Māmagāchi that is said to have been started by Sāraṅga Thakur not long ago. A new temple building was erected in front of the Bakula tree there, and it's now being managed by the members of Gaudiya Math. It is said that the management of the temple is now better than before. In the Gaudiya Godesh Dipa 172 stated that Sāraṅga Thakur was formerly a gopi named Nandimukhi, the sister of Mandamangala. Her father is Sandipandi Muni and her mother Purnamasi in Krishna Līlā. Sometimes devotees say that he was formerly Prahlad Maharaj, but Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu says that his father, Sar-vṛndāvana-pura, does not accept this position. So going back to the account of when this boy that was in the water that became back to life, it's explained that that when he came back to life, so what happened was he was due to have some initiation the day before he was found, and when Murāri Chandra, that's called Sāraṅga Thakur, brought him back to life, he went to his parents, and his parents, oh wow, thank you very much, he's back. But then Murāri, the disciple of Sāraṅga Thakur, says, but no, he says, that was my life then. My life now is with Sāraṅga Thakur. Says, I'm different now, so I'm his disciple. So I was thinking that must be very difficult for, like, you know, the parents, being a parent myself, you know, like having something like happen and then the child will say, no, this person now. It must be very difficult to be like that, because when we have attachments in this, my material attachments and designations, it's very difficult would be able to understand that. But because they're pure devotees, they understood these things. Okay, just a little bit more. Yes, there's a little bit more about the boy. It's further described that Murāri was a boy who had been killed by a snake bite. He was supposed to receive diksha from his guru the day before he was bitten, and his parents had set his uncremated body afloat on a raft in the Ganges. And as was the custom in that time, Sāraṅga Thakur himself became empowered preacher of Mahaprabhu's Dharma. Descendant of his disciples still lived in a village named Sarv, which is called corpse. So I was contemplating on this verse because trying to try to see that we following the footsteps of the personalities we read about, not that we imitate. Like in the translation, he says he was so in ecstasy, being in the Lord's company, that he was slapping the cheek of a tiger, and he never had any thought for his body. Whereas if I would do something like this, and there's fearless when we're fully in. I can't say for that because I'm learning to be a devotee, but to try and understand that, you know, what it must feel like, you know, being fearless and, you know, dancing, you know, and slapping and putting a snake on your lap, and would be really pretty scary for me. You know, because there's fear in me. I still have some designations going on in myself, some things going on, but keeping on the process of Krishna consciousness. We keep chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, association of devotees, and as he said, his Pada Seva, to serve Krishna, how Krishna wants to be served, how he likes to be served. I can only go by, you know, seeing the devotees showing me, guiding me in this way, how to serve the Lord. So it's very important to be in the association of seriously practicing devotees that can show you how to wonderfully dress the Lord. As we see here, every morning we had take darshan of Radha Vrindavan Chandra, and beautifully dressed by devotees expertly dressing. And this is also, Prabhupada says, preaching is by, when we come into the temple, the beautiful dress of Krishna. And then when we dress Krishna and the Lord's in this way, we're not very worried about how we dress or how we look. Okay, so I'm aware of the time, so we're going to go on to the next verse. So there's a little bit about Sāraṅga Thakur.
Where did you get the description of what floating in the river and taking initiation? What book does that come from?
It comes from, there's a book called, it's something I was lent, and I've heard it by also Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj and Śrī Maharaj. They have classes where they speak about this. And there's a book called, I have it here. Books I've done. Śrī Caitanya's Life and Associates. Śrī Caitanya's Life and His Associates. Yeah, it tells in there, and also the classes I was hearing from His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj and His Holiness Śrī Maharaj. They give really nice classes on that, and their realizations, because obviously they visited the place of Sāraṅga Thakur. And I've been once or twice to Mayapur, and going on yatras, you're trying to remember all the places, and I'm like, maybe I've been there, maybe I just don't remember, but by hearing the classes, you feel like you're there. But this was explained by them too, so it's very nice to hear. Is that okay? Okay, wonderful. So the next verse, 21. Nityānandera guna yata sabaraja sakha shringa vetra gopes besha sira shikapaka. All the associates of Lord Nityananda were formerly cowherd boys in Vrajbhumi. Their symbolic representations were the horns and sticks they carried, their cowherd dress and the peacock plumes of their heads. Purport. Janavamata is also within the list of Nityananda's followers. She is described in the Gora-Kondesha Dipika 66 as Ananga Manjari of Vrindavan. All the devotees who are followers of Janavamata are counted within the list of Śrī Nityananda Prabhu's devotees. So, very nice to be able to speak a little bit about Janava Devi Mata. I also got some, my studies were from the Śrī Caitanya's Life and Associates, also from Bhakti Ratnakar and Guru Gandesh Dipika. There's a lot in the Bhakti Ratnakar, wonderful stories by Sri Narahari Chakravarti. And so Janava's father was Suridas Kakhel. According to the Gaudiya Vaishnava Abhidhana, her mother's name was Bhadravati. Suridas made his home in Shaligram, not far from Navadvip. He held an important post in the king's service of Gaudiya, given the title of Shakel, which means commander. Lord Balaram's two wives, this is coming from the Gora Kondesha Dipika 65. Lord Balaram's two wives, Srimati Varuni Devi and Srimati Ravati, appeared during Lord Chaitanya's pastimes as Srimati Vasudeva Devi and Srimati Janava Devi, the two dear wives of Lord Nityananda, and the daughters of great personality, Sri Surya Das, their father. Surya Das had previously been Maharaj Kakundvi. His bodily luster made him as fulgent as the sun. Janava Devi had an older sister, as mentioned. Some say that Srimati Vasudeva is the incarnation of Srimati Manjari. Others say that Srimati Janava Devi is the incarnation of Srimati Manjari. In truth, both opinions are correct. They are both incarnations of Srimati Ananga, which is from Krishna's līlā. And who is Ananga Manjari? Does anyone know?
Radharani's sister.
Yeah, Radharani's younger sister. Yes, she is. Thank you. So this is from the Gaura Gandesh Dipika 66. And this Gaura Gandesh Dipika 66 means the shining lamp of the associates of Gaura. This is a unique work of Kavi-Kanavapura, describing the otherworldly identities of prominent associates and followers of Śrī Caitanya and are understood to have descended from him, from Goloka to Acmeya spiritual abodes. So Janava Devi's glories, there's so many. After the disappearance of the Panchatattva, many of the Lord Chaitanya's eternal associates, Janava Devi organized a huge Sankirtan festival held in Keturi on Gurapanin. Thousands of Lord Gauranga's followers such as Narottam, Shamananda, Srinivas, Vrindavan-das, Murāri Caitanya, Paramashara and Miniketana Ram attended the first Keturi Sankirtan at the Mohatsava. They celebrated Gauranga's appearance day with thunderous chanting and exuberant dancing, tasting prasadam. 6 sets of beautiful deities were installed. Sri Janava Devi cooked a matchless feast and personally served all the Vaishnavas. During Narottam Das Prema Nam Kirtan, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, Śrī Nityānanda Prabhu and their associates suddenly appeared to the delight of all. Janava Devi travelled throughout Gaura and Raj Mandalas. Wherever she went, the Gaura Bhaktas happily greeted and served her, known as Nityananda Swarupini. Janava Devi overflowed with prema bhakti. She delivered many atheists and sinners by her compassionate preaching. Śrīla Thakur Bhaktivinoda offers this prayer to Janava Devi in his Kalyana Kalapatura. O Janava Devi, by the power of your divine qualities, be merciful unto this servant of yours. Dispel this illusion which torments me and relieve me of material existence. Let me take shelter of your lotus feet. You are Nityananda Shakti, the divine energy of Lord Nityananda himself. You are the Guru of Krishna Bhakti. Be merciful to me and grant me the shade of your lotus feet, which are like desire trees. You have delivered countless abominable sinners. Please deliver me in the same way today. Praying for your mercy, this lowly sinner falls at your lotus feet. So it's described in the scriptures that after the disappearance of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Janava Devi was carrying on the work and she became a guru, so she had many, many followers. And in this wonderful... Can you hear me now? It's gone low. Can you hear me now? Hare Kṛṣṇa? Hare Kṛṣṇa? That better? Hare Kṛṣṇa, is that better? Okay, sorry. That's one. Okay, there's a couple of stories I'd like to share from this wonderful teachings here. As an ignorant person, I'm unable to perfectly describe the devotional qualities of Sri Janava Devi, yet I will describe what I have heard from others. So this is Sri Narahari Chakravarti hearing from others the glories of Janava Devi. While travelling to Vrindavan, Sri Janava passed through the large village and wanted to stop here for some time. But she heard that the village was the residence of many heretics who continually harassed the Vaishnavas. That evening, the Bhagavatas of the village came forward to meet Sri Ishwari, she's also known as Sri Ishwari, and bowed at her feet while the heretics gathered around, criticizing that the Vaishnavas had no knowledge and therefore they bowed to a human being instead of worshipping demigods. One villager thought that perhaps the Vaishnavas bowed to her because they thought she was the personification of goddess Chandi. What do these Vaishnavas know of the great Sri Chandi? Said another villager in rebuttal. The simple villagers felt that might have offended Sri Chandi by comparing her to Sri Ishwari. So they went immediately to the temple of Sri Chandi and prayed that she might kill the foolish Vaishnavas. Then they all returned to their houses and went to sleep. Goddess Chandi, however, became angry not with the Vaishnavas but with the foolish heretics. Her eyes grew red and her lips quivered in anger. Carrying a sharp falchion, she appeared in a dream of each of these villagers and addressed them angrily. "You are wicked, heretical, and proud, and you have deliberately insulted the Param-bhagavatas," said the goddess. She raised her falchion to kill each heretic simultaneously, chastising him for considering Śrī Ishwari an ordinary Brahmana woman. Śrī Ishwari was a wife of Nityananda, who was himself the incarnation of Balaram, and was to be worshipped by the whole universe, even by Śrī Caitanya herself. Janava-Ishwari was competent to carry the living entities beyond their miseries and fears of this world. She was the personification of love and kindness, had no interest but showing mercy on the living entities. Chandi warned them that if they did not try to get the mercy of Śrī Janava-Ishwari, then a mighty falchion would send them to eternal damnation. In a roaring fury, Goddess Chandi spoke to the village people and then disappeared. They awoke at once from their sleep and shivered in fear as they realized their dangerous situation. When morning arrived, they went straight to meet the Mantas, carrying deep remorse within their hearts. Soaked by their own tears of self-condemnation, the villagers fell at the feet of the Mahatmas and prayed for forgiveness. They wanted the mercy of the Mahatmas, knowing that if the Mahatmas forgave them, surely Śrī Ishwari would also forgive them. They admitted their guilt and prayed for an opportunity to take shelter of her feet. Observing their humble and repentant mood, the Mahanta Prabhus forgave them, and Śrī Ishwari also accepted them. She remained 2 to 4 days in the village after blessing the heretics and then resumed her journey. The heretics had been transformed into devotees. So how powerful she is, amazing, no? So many, this is wonderful, this book, it's so many pastimes of wonderful devotees like Janava Devi. I mean, I could read on, but the time is here, but maybe I can read something a little bit more. This one, something where she was meeting, I was helping with some translations, my Guru Maharaj, and he was talking about the 6 Goswamis, and also she came into the vision of that. It was very nice. So Śrī Ashri visits Radhakund. Śrī Das Goswami lived at Radhakund when Śrī Ishwari arrived in Vrindavan, and although he wanted to meet her, he did not have the strength to walk to Vrindavan. Since the disappearance of Śrī Rupa Das Goswami had given up eating and drinking water and was thus emaciated and weak, he passed his days miserably, hoping only to leave this world. Krishna Das Kaviraj wanted the Vrindavan Goswamis to meet Das Goswami, and therefore Gopala and Madhava Pandit went from Nandishwara and Govardhan to meet Śrī Ishwari about the condition of Das Goswami. Śrī Janava-Ishwari was sorry to hear his condition and told Gopal Bhatt and others that the next morning she would visit Radhakund. The Goswamis advised her to return early after the visit to Radhakund. She should rest and visit the various forests of Vrindavan. The next morning, Śrī Ishwari and the Goswamis started for Radhakund through the Bahula forest. She was enchanted by the beauty of Radhakund, but in her mind, the desire to meet Śrī Das Goswami is foremost. Śrī Das Goswami lived in a lonely place and engaged himself in continuously chanting the holy name. Krishna Das Goswami went in advance to meet Das Goswami and interrupted his kirtan to tell him that Śrī Ishwari was on her way. With an emotional surge, he jumped up and went to receive Śrī Janava. Janava saw that although his body was emaciated, Das Goswami was as fulgent as the sun, and she began to cry spontaneously. Das Goswami bowed to her feet and then met Sri Madhavacharya and Janava's other associates. They all wept uncontrollably. The Radhavasis at Arid village were happy to meet Śrī Ishwari. She stayed at Radhakund for 3 or 4 days, and every day she cooked various items and offered them to Lord Krishna. Then she happily distributed the food to all the Radhavasis of the area. So I'll stop there. Could read lots more about her. It's exciting, and there is I can't remember. There is a bathing place where she is whereabouts is that? It's Radhakund, right? And I can't remember what sides of that, but it was nice to actually go and visit the place where she actually goes to bathe in Radhakund. So it's like her own little door, her own little place, if I can remember rightly. I only say only, but I visited Vrindavan once in 2017 when I was on a yatra, and trying to captivate the whole of the experience is very quite nice but overwhelming at the same time, because you're trying to see everything and trying to see where everyone is, and then when you come back from and when I experience, like when we hear Prabhupada say that the devotees should go to the Dham, should visit India, to the Vrindavan, and to be spiritually energized to come back and preach. It's so true, because often for myself, when I visited these places, when you read, you immediately are there. It's just a wonderful thing. Prabhupada's given us this amazing opportunity to become some Krishna conscious, some way of practicing Krishna conscious, and then to give others. It's just a very beautiful process. Of course, it has its ups and downs, but with these ups and downs, I've been taught by senior devotees for sure, by watching them, is that we console the times we've been to these places, just to pick us up again. So we need to be, because it's going to be up and down. We're in the material world where there's so much enjoyment, so much this and that. I mean, I'm speaking in Oxford Street in London, that's where I'm from, UK. So I was serving at London Ishwar Temple in Soho Street, so we're right next to the busiest street in the world, where all of the countries are going, completely you couldn't see the pavement for people. And you can easily get captivated by, as when I was a kid going down Oxford Street, you had the old shops, but now you have these big screens inviting you this and that, this clothing, those shoes, have your hair like this, have your nails done, have this tuck, that tuck, so there's complete bombardment of, becoming, just be on this material designation and not think of Krishna in these ways. So somehow or other you have to really, really fight and your mind with that and think of Krishna in some way. So having these spiritual universities like New Vrindavan and the farm community here, a very beautiful place to come and to be spiritually energized is a wonderful thing to help us to continue in our daily activities. If we're not living in a temple, we can practice these things, the Krishna consciousness, even in our own homes. So thank you very much. If anybody's got any comments or questions.
The transformation of Murāri Caitanya upon being initiated by Sāraṅga Ṭhākura, and then not just initiated, but he was given a new life.
Yeah.
Right. So you explain how he went to his parents were so happy that he died and he came back to life, and they wanted to take him home, and he said, "No, I have to give my heart and soul and my life to the person who gave me life."
Yeah.
That, and you said, it was a shocking experience for his parents to hear that, or for any parent to hear that, when the child rejects them. And I know that our generation, Prabhupada disciples, there's many, many stories of how when we first come home, or we first meet our parents, say that we now have a new name, we have a new life, we have new goals. It was completely shocking to them, and that's why actually at that time there was a whole attempt to quote unquote deprogram the devotees from parents, from their own parents, from the devotees' parents. We have devotees living at Vṛndāvana who went through that experience, whose parents hired people to try to get them to become back to their normal, so-called normal material consciousness. So that was one thing that I reflected upon when we were talking about that we've actually, it's not just this pastime that happened 500 years ago, it actually happens to anyone. Not of course, we have this new generation of the children being brought up. So
amazing children.
Supporting parents. You know, it's not like that, but for our generation specifically, I was remembering that. And then, and the other thing that happens upon transformation, that's described how Murāri Caitanya became fearless, and he was able to make friends with snakes and tigers. This also happens in the lives of devotees, especially if they become a Sankirtan devotee. We like our Sankirtan devotees, we experience it ourselves, how we have to approach these gigantic men, Western men, who are, you know, all meat eaters, which is, that's a tiger, is a meat eater, and so anybody that's eating meat can be compared to like a tiger. So we have to approach them and engage in the devotional service. Big men or snakes are just envious creatures. So there's so many envious creatures out there in the form of human being, but as devotees we become fearless because we have the mission of the spiritual master, and therefore everyone is, by Nityananda's mercy, everyone is actually a candidate for this mercy. And I was listening to Prabhupada this morning, he was saying how, you know, the devotee doesn't see the bodily distinctions between elephant and dog eater. The devotee sees the spirit soul. And that is the foundation of fearlessness. So these things that have happened in the past are happening now if we just surrender to the spiritual master, to the mission of the spiritual master. That same fearlessness, empowerment, and identification with our new life, our new family, our new, in a sense that joining Krishna's family, then that is available for those who want it and who get the mercy. Maybe some of us didn't even want it, but we were fed forcibly by the mercy of the devotees.
Actually, in one class today, Prabhupada says that black-faced persons is like somebody that's not, you know, like devotee. But I mean, my experience in book distribution when I go out when I was in London, you give somebody a book, immediately they light up like a bulb. You know, there's none. They're completely like, it's like immediate. As I touch the book, and this is Prabhupada saying, I get them to touch the book, you know, hold the book, because they completely like, the light bulb comes on them, and then they go away, and then they down again. You can see it, like you say, thank you for sharing this.
Hare Kṛṣṇa, going off of what you're saying, that was a really good analogy, Guru, on the tiger, the snake. That was great. I love that. Also, I guess off the whole brainwashing thing. A couple years back, I was searching videos on YouTube, and I came across the Hare Kṛṣṇa brainwashing debate between Ted Patrick and... Yes. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because you said that, and I remember watching this and going, wow, he is completely making this man humbly look like a fool. He's just sitting there responding to his arrogance in such a calm, nice way, and almost like as if he was like, how could you be so stupid not to understand this? It was so nice. And he was attacking him. And he sat there so calmly and basically looked at him and explained it almost as if he was a child. And it made so much sense. So I suggest that if you hit the time, it's 34 minutes long, and it's on YouTube. It's Hare Kṛṣṇa Brainwashing Debate, Ted Project, and unfortunately I want to say his name incorrectly. Goswami. This was back in what, oh man, this was a while ago.
Early 80s.
Yeah, early 80s. When this was occurring to all these new devotees, Prabhupada disciples said, this guy was the main guy, from my understanding, that was trying to deprogram Hare Kṛṣṇa devotees, and obviously he was unsuccessful. But it's interesting. It's a good watch, and that's it.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. I think we're running out of time now, so is there any more questions before we? Okay. Chaitanya Chamrita ki jai. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Let's go to
Mohini Prabhu ki jai.